Hello, I've returned with another ADH Wealth solution. Today, we will begin to discuss fulfilling all of your financial needs. As always, this is a basic description. For an evaluation of your own, please schedule an appointment. My information is in the description. Lastly, make sure you hit the like, drop a comment, and if you're new, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're made aware every time I release new content.
Please welcome Maggie Anderson.
Good day, American College. To the College Executive Leadership Team, CAAFP sponsors, and all the American College and CAAFP staff, volunteers, all the financial institutions, especially Penn Mutual, this session sponsor, I say thank you so much. Thank you for making the CAAFP possible. And I got to put my heart on a platter for Deborah Glenn, American College VP and Chief Human Resources Officer, AKA my sister friend. Thank you, girl, for inviting me, for holding my hand, for all your love and help. And another special shout out goes to my fellow academic activist and CAAFP speaker, Dr. Pamela Jolly, who I honored in my book and has inspired and informed me for over a decade since I took my famous stand to buy Black and buy Black only for a whole year. And last but not least, lots of love and thanks to all you financial freedom fighters for being here as we celebrate and activate the bold and brilliant 4 Steps Forward Empowerment Plan. So let's go. Publishers Weekly, in reviewing my book, called this issue, The Lack of Support of Black Businesses and the Rapid Exit of Dollars from Black Communities, a dynamite subject, and my family's experiment historic and effective. And the Library Journal said my book successfully illuminates the roadblocks faced by Black business owners and the racial divide that continues to persist in the US economy. They also said that it will appeal to students of sociology and economics, as well as all those looking for inspiration to affect positive change in their communities. That means you. Alfred Edmond, editor of Black Enterprise, said, the Andersons' economic odyssey is nothing short of heroic. And Kathy Hughes, owner of the Radio One, TV One, Urban One empire, said of our year and my book, thank God for this level of commitment to our Black community. But we didn't create the empowerment experiment, then see it through. We didn't impose that sacrifice on our then 2- and 3-year-old little girls, too young to understand our purpose, too innocent to be forced into our audaciousness. I didn't put my babies through that for kudos or great book reviews. We did it to get here, to see you, share this with you, inspire you, and unite with you. We also did it because economic unity and entrepreneurial success is in our blood. It's our tradition, our history. But it should not just be history, the way of the past. It should be our enduring legacy. And until it is, it remains our calling and responsibility. Starting even before emancipation, Black Americans amassed great business power. The Black community built universities, churches, banks, insurance companies, grocery stores, hotel chains, drugstores, department stores, hardware stores, daycare centers, hospital systems, entire farming regions, Black-owned asset brokerages, all kinds of shops and professionals and contractors thrived. In the early 1900s, Black entrepreneurship was at its peak. So leaders like Dr. King grew up studying business, admiring business owners and leaders. He admired W.B. Du Bois and Carter G. Woodson and Booker T. Washington, titans of industry. Dr. King read Booker T's The Negro in Business. As a young man, he met with business moguls like hotelier A.G. Gaston. All the time, hung out with Cirillo McSween, who was the first Black insurance agent at New York Life. Then McSween converted his success as a financial professional like you into entrepreneurial success as an owner of several McDonald's restaurants, parlayed that expertise and success into empowerment and service by serving as a treasurer to the SCLC during the Civil Rights Movement. And he put his own money and the SCLC's money into Black-owned banks. This is what financial freedom fighters did for the Black community. When they called the meeting within hours of Rosa Parks' arrest, the professionals and entrepreneurs like you, lawyers, agents, pharmacists, grocers, barbers and bankers, publishers, the Black union leaders came to offer support. And during the boycott, when the marchers lost their jobs and businesses were burned down and homes were bombed and taxi drivers were jailed for giving rides to the boycotters and business leaders were lynched for leading the movement, the Black banks stepped in, the Black funeral homes stepped in, in. They built war chests for the lawsuits and the process to keep the attacked businesses afloat. They put insurance policies in place to rebuild the homes and the businesses and to cover the lost wages and all the death and destruction from the terrorism of the racists. Dr. King was not hoping for and hollering for a $10,000 sponsorship from GM or GE to pay the cost for or pave the way to our freedom. The civil rights movement was not brought to you by Madam C.J. Walker, the mother of the Black hair care industry and the first Black woman millionaire. She made those millions, and then she enabled the NAACP and the National Conference on Lynching. A grocery store owner and an owner of a large printing company created the first branch of the NAACP in Mississippi. Those Black business owners led and funded the dangerous fight for the vote there. And when they won that fight, their names were the first ones on the voter rolls. These business owners. Back then, African Americans were making their own way, backed and inspired by the business owners, finding and forcing and funding our freedom on our own. Hundreds of millions were created and recycled by and in the Black community. The dollar would stay in the community for 3 years or more before integration. Unemployment was at the same level as that of whites and sometimes lower than that of whites nationally from 1880 all the way through 1940. Lower because Black people employed each other in our self-sustained and vibrant neighborhoods in Tulsa, Durham, Tampa, Louisville's Russell neighborhood, Sistrunk Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale, Bronzeville in Chicago, Harlem, Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Magic City in Birmingham, Lincoln Avenue in Cincinnati, and so many more. Black neighborhoods signify genius and greatness, soul and success, elegance and entrepreneurial excellence. And that's why the racists and supremacists so vehemently and violently resisted the success of the Black business and financial communities. Over 90% of the thousands of lynchings of Blacks that happened during Reconstruction and Jim Crow were of business owners. Terrorism, when that area they called Black Wall Street in Tulsa was bombed, then burned by racists, white crowds watched the destruction of that vital community and called it a Negro barbecue. I told you about the business owners who launched the NAACP in Mississippi, Mr. Lee and Mr. Quartz, a grocer and a printer, and they registered hundreds of Black voters. For that, those two business owners were threatened, but they fought on. They fought on for us, for me, for you, Deborah. Lee, grocer and a reverend. For that, he was shot and killed. Killed. A reverend, a good man, a great American. And Mr. Quartz, he was shot too, but he lived. Then the local white banks, they stopped lending to him, and the local white gas stations, they stopped servicing him. See, when the racists couldn't kill the business owner, they tried to kill the business. But hear me, Quartz and other wealthy Blacks started pulling money in the community so that they could purchase their own gas station, and they did. And Quartz survived, and his business thrived, and he kept supporting the NAACP, and he kept fighting for the vote, and Black people in Mississippi were able to vote. Americans were inspired and enabled to vote because of Mr. Lee and Mr. Quartz and so many more like them. Bottom line, as I close this history lesson, Black-owned businesses helped make life better for tormented Black Americans when racist systems would not. And Black entrepreneurs made America better when racist structures could not. It's time to do that again. It's your time to insist on and inspire economic empowerment and justice, financial fortitude and freedom, and defy, decry, and deny the structures and systems that breed racism and inequality. Let's unite economically like they did and fight for an America, Dr. King's America, with all kinds of people shopping at a retailer or a grocer started by a Black family, like Mr. Lee's family. In King's America, all kinds of people are looking for Black franchises and consumer brands, companies and designers and growing Black family-owned global conglomerates. And depending on our expertise and professionals like you, banking with us, staying in our hotels, just like we do everyone else. Let's unite economically, all of us, for an America where an already broken and bereft Black neighborhood is not the only place where every other ethnic group and majority enterprise can set up shop and thrive while Black people suffer. How about an America where equality is manifest in thriving Black-owned businesses in Little Italy and Chinatown and Koreatown and Greektown and downtown and the North Sides and the affluent, predominantly white suburbs? Why not? Their businesses thrive in our neighborhoods. An America where it's not a ridiculous notion to a Black child that someone like her can own a grocery chain or a drugstore, that her parents can pay for college and pass on a big house and a big business, that the toaster her mama buys at Walmart or the paint her uncle got from the Home Depot was made possibly by a Black family company. where that Black child can go to the corner candy store or bakery and see an owner who looks like and looks out for her. An America where middle-class working Black families and Black-owned businesses and storefronts and professionals are welcomed, a draw, not a deterrent or a disturbance, in burgeoning, beautiful neighborhoods. I'm fighting for that America for 12 years now, before Trump, before George Floyd's murder. It's been 12 years since the empowerment experiment, my family's public stand and study to buy Black only for an entire year. You know, our stand and sacrifice made headlines, front pages of the Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, LA Times, New York Times, major segments on CNN, C-SPAN, CBS News, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC News, BET News, Tom Joyner, Black Enterprise Essence, countless TV and radio shows, newspapers and magazines. We touched millions all over the world. Then I wrote my book, Our Black Year, which is a tribute to our country's Black business history and a detailed account of our year. Kellogg at Northwestern, one of the best business schools in the world, completed a landmark study based on my family's receipts and the data we collected. That study proved that close to 1 million new American jobs could be created if just some of us were to make small sacrifices and changes to buy Black. Here are a few more highlights from the empowerment experiment. We spent or otherwise invested a little over $94,000 that year with Black businesses that we would not have otherwise. Over 90% of our spending went back into underserved, predominantly Black areas. We went without. We are disappointed by the number of markets and industries where African Americans still suffer from a complete lack of representation. We are disheartened by our own people's lack of pride and solidarity. Our hearts ache seeing up close what my people, Black people, have to go through in these retail and food deserts. Can't get a fresh piece of fish or a banana? Forced to settle for inferior goods and service, extortionate prices, and enduring disrespect from shop owners who don't look like and won't live in the community, but come to the community every day. Remove the padlock from the steel gates and the bars and take Black money through that slit in the bulletproof glass. And then at the end of the day, they put that steel door back down, they put that padlock back on, and then they drive home to their suburbs and enclaves to build up their local tax bases and school systems and retirement portfolios and send their kids to college and buy their dream homes and vacations with poor Black people's hard-earned wealth. It was hurtful and fearful being called a racist, a Nazi, and the other N-word, getting death threats and hate mail. It still hurts my heart when I think about what I put my baby girls through, begging me, mama, for fruit and toys, going to school crying with the shoes too tight and belly poking out of their shirts and coming home crying because they were teased, all because it took 5 months to find one Black-owned shop offering toddler clothing and shoes. I made my babies eat gas station food like old putrid bologna and overpriced, oversugared, I guess it was cereal, for dinner because the one Black-owned grocery store we could find closed 4 months before we finished our year. All those businesses we sought and supported that we loved and lived off of, the ones you read about in my book, not just the grocery store, they're all gone. And then 1 month after we finished our Black year, my mother died in my arms, losing a hard-fought battle with pancreatic cancer. My immigrant mother, a Cuban farm girl who never made it to high school, but was wise enough to teach me that despite what our Cuban peers in Florida told us, our being from Cuba didn't make us not Black or less Black. That just meant that my slave ancestors were dropped off a little earlier. That was my Mima. And Mima was sick and dying the whole year. And I know she suffered longer than she would have just to see her only American-born child, her only daughter, fulfill this pledge to our Black community and our great country. Yes, we lost so much that year, but we learned so much too. And that's really significant because before that year, John and I thought we had it all and that we knew it all. My husband, John, is from Detroit. He left to get his undergraduate degree in economics from Harvard, minored in Latin. Then my courageous and gorgeous nerd got his MBA in economics and entrepreneurial finance at Kellogg. He's a certified financial planner now, like some of you, personally and professionally using his smarts and solidarity and success and spend to support his family, leave an empowerment legacy, and lift up his community, like you. I grew up in Miami, in an underserved area called Liberty City, and then I went to college at Emory in Atlanta, where I was blessed to serve as an aide to our recently passed on civil rights hero, John Lewis. Congressman John Lewis. After Atlanta, I headed to Chicago for graduate school, just like John did, but I went to the University of Chicago, not Northwestern, for my MBA and my law degree. and was able to serve with and learn from another civil rights hero, then law professor and community organizer Barack Obama, turned 44th president of the United States of America. And we fell in love while we were both in graduate school. Now that's John and I, not the president and I. Found great companies, found great jobs at big companies, bought a home in a pricey suburb, had our own 2 beautiful daughters, and were living out our fancy fairy tale life. We supported the community, sort of. We were active in the youth ministry at our Black church. John's a mentor with 100 Black men. We voted Black. We hurt when Black people got shot on the South Side. We got happy when Black folks were nominated for awards and the Black coach made it to the Super Bowl. We're teaching our daughters to love themselves, their God, their neighbor, their country, and their skin. We were Black, just not buying Black, just like so many most proud Black people, but everything else very, very Black. Well, Black-ish. Y'all know what I mean. But hey, we tithed every once in a while. We donated to the UNCF. Wasn't that enough? Philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause that philanthropist to overlook the circumstances of economic injustice which make philanthropy necessary. Dr. King said that. So what are those circumstances of economic injustice, and what are we supposed to do about them? In Asian American communities, a dollar circulates among the banks and retailers and professionals for 28 days before it goes outside. Our Jewish friends keep their dollar for 19 to 21 days. And that's why these groups have the lowest unemployment and incarceration rates and the highest household incomes and educational achievement. In the Black community, the dollar lives for 6 hours. Used to be 3 years or more. 6 hours now. 6 hours. This is why the Black community suffers and is so far behind. This is why racial disharmony and racist systems and structures grow. These are the circumstances of economic injustice that our King told us we cannot overlook. But in the late 1960s, right around Dr. King's death, we did start to overlook. That's when their hatred of our ascendants was ultimately matched by our hunger for acceptance. King saw this. He started to fear that our civil rights victories might come at the expense of our economic ones. After the bus boycott, after the March on Washington, the Voting Rights Act, after integration, when most of those bombs and fires and lynchings and terror dissipated, our economic solidarity and our entrepreneurial spirit dwindled as well. He saw this. He saw that we were losing the economic fight and our economic might. In a public address, his famous mountaintop speech that he delivered the day before they killed him, he pivoted to talk about financial and economic empowerment. He spoke of our collective buying power and urged an economic withdrawal from businesses discriminating against Black employees and mistreating Black customers. But not just that, King specifically fought for Black-owned businesses. You have to know that, not just for the right to go to segregated white-owned businesses. King said, we got to strengthen Black institutions. I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money into Tri-State Bank, a Black-owned bank. We want a bank-in movement in Memphis. We're just telling you to follow what we're doing. Put your money there. He said that, and we didn't. Instead, it became fashionable to abandon the Black-owned banks and businesses, to show and prove that we were good enough to buy from the businesses once denied to us. Within 20 years after we lost Dr. King, 85% of our over 120 Black-owned banks disappeared. The bank Jackie Robinson built so that Black families can get mortgages and Black entrepreneurs can get business loans. Freedom National Bank, gone. We celebrate Jackie, we celebrate King when we talk about great American racial progress, but the banks they built and fought for, the banks that helped them make that progress, are dead. In the 1930s, grocery stores represented the largest category of Black-owned businesses. We had 6,400 when Kellogg did the famous study based on my family's experiment in 2010.
Interested in having an evaluation? Find my contact info in the description and schedule a consult to explore your options. Have a financial question but don't know who to ask? Email me at a.hall@cgwealth.financial and your question may be answered in my next video. Security products are subject to investment risks, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, limitations, charges, and expenses of the product and any underlying investment options. This information can be found in the product and investment option prospectuses. Copies are available from your registered representative.